Hello everyone and welcome to our channel. We hope you enjoy our content. Thanks for watching and enjoy the video.
The most powerful code in your life may not be the code you write. It may be the code that quietly writes the rules around you. Not the dramatic kind of control, not soldiers at a gate, not a law announced from a podium, something quieter, a login screen, a default setting, a risk score, a recommendation, a button that is easy to press, and another option that is technically available, but buried 3 screens deep. Modern power often does not need to say no, it only needs to design the room. And once the room is designed, most people will move through it exactly as expected. The unsettling question is not simply, who is watching me? The deeper question is, what kind of person does the system expect me to become? Consider a strange possibility. Can a company build a profile of you before you ever create an account? At first, that sounds impossible. If you never joined the platform, never filled in the form, never clicked accept, then where would the data come from? But networks do not work like private diaries. They work like maps. And on a map, your outline can appear because of everything around you. Researchers studying the archived remains of Friendster, one of the early social networks, tested a disturbing idea: whether information shared by people inside a network could help predict information about people outside it. The point was not that Friendster had some magical database. The point was simpler and more uncomfortable. Your friends, contacts, relationships, and social patterns can reveal things about you even when you did not reveal them yourself. A private life, in a networked world, is no longer held entirely by the person living it. It is distributed. Some of it sits in your phone. Some of it sits in other people's contact lists. Some of it appears in photos, tags, messages, shared calendars, delivery addresses, group chats, and patterns of movement. You may choose silence, but the network may still speak around you. This is the shadow profile problem. The system does not need your confession if it can infer your shape. That is the first hidden turn in this story. Privacy stopped being only an individual choice. It became a social condition. For centuries, privacy was imagined like a wall. You could close the door. You could keep a letter in a drawer. You could refuse to answer a question. But digital privacy behaves less like a wall and more like water. It leaks through relationships. It travels through systems. It follows paths you did not see and may never control. And once enough traces accumulate, the system can begin to guess. Not perfectly, not always, but often enough to matter. This is where the old image of surveillance begins to fail. When people hear the word surveillance, they often picture a camera, a person watching a screen, a tower above a prison yard. That image has a history. In the late 18th century, Jeremy Bentham described the panopticon, a prison design built around a central watchtower. The prisoners could be seen from the tower, but they could not know when they were being watched. The genius of the design was psychological. The guard did not need to watch every prisoner at every moment. The possibility of being watched was enough. Over time, the prisoner would begin to regulate himself. The tower moved into the mind. That is why the panopticon became such a powerful metaphor for modern control. It showed that power does not always work by force. Sometimes it works by making people behave as if force is always nearby. But the digital world changed the shape of the tower. The old panopticon watched. The new one learns. It does not only ask, "What are you doing?" It asks, "What are you likely to do next?" And that difference is enormous. Observation can punish the past. Prediction can shape the future. This is where code becomes more than software. A law can tell you what is allowed. A police officer can enforce that law. A social norm can make you feel ashamed for breaking it. A price can make a behavior too expensive, but architecture can do something more silent. It can make some actions possible and others impossible. It can make one path frictionless and another path exhausting. It can decide what you see first, what you never notice, what feels normal, and what feels suspicious. In the physical world, architecture regulates all the time. A speed bump slows a car without arguing with the driver. A locked door prevents entry without explaining itself. A narrow hallway controls movement without making a speech. Online, code is architecture. It is the hallway, the door, the speed bump, the mirror, the gate, and sometimes the judge. This is the idea behind the phrase, code is law. Not because software and law are identical, but because software can regulate behavior with the force of a built environment. If a platform requires a real name, anonymity is no longer simply a personal choice. If a payment system blocks a category of business, access becomes a design decision. If an app hides the privacy option under layers of friction, consent becomes less like a choice and more like a path of least resistance. Nobody has to command you. The interface can guide you. And guidance, repeated at scale, becomes governance. That is the second hidden turn. Control becomes harder to see when it arrives as convenience. The button remembers your address. The feed learns your habits. The map predicts your route. The app suggests the next purchase. The platform removes friction from one behavior and adds friction to another. Each piece seems small. Together, they create a behavioral landscape. A person walking through that landscape may still feel free, and in many ways, they are. They can click away, they can change settings, they can delete the app, they can choose differently. But freedom is not only whether another option exists. Freedom is also whether the environment has been designed to make that option visible, understandable, and realistic. This is where the prediction machine enters. The most valuable resource in the digital economy is not only data. Raw data is messy. It is only the beginning. The real value is prediction. What will you click? What will you buy? What will you fear? What will hold your attention? When are you vulnerable? Which message will move you from hesitation to action? The system extracts traces of behavior, turns them into models, and sells or applies the forecast. That is why surveillance capitalism is not just about watching people. Watching is only the input. The output is influence. The older market wanted to know what customers wanted. The newer machine wants to know what people can be made to want. And this is not always dramatic. Most of the time, it feels ordinary. A recommended video, a ranked search result, a credit risk model, a fraud score, a trust badge, a delivery estimate, a dynamic price, a work productivity dashboard, a hiring filter, a notification arriving at the exact moment you are most likely to respond. None of these things, by itself, looks like a prison. That is why the metaphor of the prison can mislead us. The most effective digital control does not always trap the body, it organizes the options. We often imagine the future of control as one giant public score, displayed above every citizen, deciding where they can travel, what they can buy, and who they can become. That image is frightening, and in some places, pieces of it are real. But it is not the only version. The more ordinary version is fragmented. It is spread across platforms, companies, public systems, private vendors, insurers, lenders, employers, schools, and recommendation engines. No single tower needs to see everything if many smaller systems can each see enough. This distributed form of control is harder to notice because it rarely arrives as a single event. It arrives as denied access, as a lower rank, as a missing opportunity, as a suspicious flag, as an invisible category, as a feed that slowly teaches you what kind of person gets rewarded. And then something subtle happens. People begin to edit themselves for systems they cannot see. They write for the algorithm, they perform for the metric, they avoid the risky word, they choose the safer image. They optimize the profile. They become careful around the unknown score. The panopticon no longer needs stone walls, it needs uncertainty. Am I being measured? How am I being classified? What did the system infer? Which version of me is being shown to others? And what will happen if I behave outside the expected pattern? This is the final turn. The controlled person does not always feel controlled. They feel optimized, they feel ranked, they feel guided, they feel watched only in moments, and then they forget. But the architecture remains. The defaults remain, the models improve. The room keeps learning. So the question is not whether technology is good or bad. That question is too simple. The real question is who gets to design the architecture of choice? Who decides what is easy? Who decides what is hidden? Who decides what counts as normal, risky, valuable, suspicious, profitable, or true? Because the most powerful code in modern life may not look like power at all. It may look like a button, it may look like a score, it may look like a recommendation, it may look like convenience. And by the time we notice the shape of the room, we may already have learned how to behave inside it. So here is the quiet question. If code can shape the room before we make a choice, how many of our choices are really happening in freedom?
Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe for more, and we'll see you in the next one.